That's nice. That's nice. I'm going to put this on the edge of the piano, so you don't mind if that just sits up on the piano. And that way it'll be there when I come down and stay beside it. Either one. Do you have a preference? Okay, right here's fine.
I've seen you for a while. You ready? She's not quite enough.
Yeah.
So that's going to be our trick. Is to find one people and that goes.
Good morning. How are you this morning? So we got one to get into covered yet.
Takes a long time to get through.
Well, reschedule to see my dad was my dog. I didn't get it, but he says that right now.
Can somebody light the candle in that book today?
We'll light it when I light the chalice.
Welcome. Welcome to the First Universalist Church of New Madison. I'd like to start by acknowledging and welcoming some guests we have here this morning. We have Lisa Spring, who is Roberta's daughter, and Betty Lou Johansson, who is Roberta's sister. So we have the Roberta contingent is here. And then, coming in the back aisle, my brother Seth and his husband Bob are here as well. So,
And your husband.
pardon?
Your husband.
And my husband, I don't really consider him a guest, he has a name tag, but, and Dick is here. So welcome on this morning that so far is bright and sunny. This is a congregation that gathers in faith, not faith in one religion or one God or any one way. We gather in faith of the power of diversity, the power of love, and the hope of a world transformed by our care. We gather in faith in ourselves and those around us, not a faith that requires perfection or rightness in one another, rather a faith in our own shared imperfection that we may stumble and fall and get up again together. Faith that we will help one another to rise and to try again and again. Pray. Thank you, Roberta. Lighting the chalice is an important part of any UU service. I invite you to listen to these words as we light our chalice this morning. It's called Chalice Lighting for the New Year. For the new year, just days old, beginning today, always beginning. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope. For beginnings that emerge out of endings, appear amidst continuity, become visible in hindsight. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope. For all the times and all the ways we have begun anew together. We light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope. In our chalice lighting, that was the end of the reading. In our chalice lighting, we always speak of light, or we light a candle. With this morning's theme as Epiphany, light plays an important role. And so our first hymn may stretch the season a bit, but we're going to sing Bring a Torch, Jeanette Isabella. It's hymn number 233. You may skip the verse in French, and we will sing the 2 verses in English. Please join me in saying the affirmation which is printed in your bulletin. Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest of truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human needs, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This affirmation is really important to me. For a long time, we said it pretty much every Sunday. But the very first Sunday that Dick and I came to this church, this was the affirmation. And it made such an impression on me that when I have the opportunity to be here in the pulpit, you'll probably get to say it again. Now we move to the part of the service where I invite you to show joys and concerns. And the first candle I'll light, as we have been doing for quite a few Sundays now, is for the people of Ukraine. We have had an outreach. In fact, Lou's been involved in having us put together an offering of coats, which were sent earlier in the winter, as well as for this small congregation, a sizable amount of money, which I have forgotten the amount. But our hearts are always with the people of Ukraine, and we want to light a candle for them and for their plight. Other joys and concerns.
Yeah, the wife of an army buddy of mine over in Philadelphia had an open heart Thursday, and they keep saying she's doing well, but they also keeps saying she has to come out of anesthetic, or whatever they call it. So, Lion came for Regina Doyle.
For Regina Doyle.
And Mike, her husband. Good friends of ours.
Roberta.
I think you probably all know my sister Betty Lou and my daughter Lisa, but I'm happy and proud to have them here this morning.
Well, that takes 2 candles, doesn't it? One for Lisa and one for Betty Lou. If I have enough candles, I could do Seth and Bob, but we'll see. It's certainly a joy to have them here as well. Other joys and concerns. Seth.
Mary Benson Landau, who has spoken here at UU, she's starting to fade a little bit. And she's always in our thoughts.
For Mary, a dear friend of our family, in fact, someone who conducted my father's memorial service when he passed away. And she's struggling with some memory issues and so forth. Lou.
Denise is back up in Nashville. They're still trying to figure out what's wrong with her dad. It was like the beginning of November, all of a sudden he has this pain and weakness, and they think there's a multiple number of things going on with him, and so he's back in the hospital the 3rd time, and she is with her mom, and they do get along, but there's a little bit of micromanaging there. So, but if you keep her or her dad in your thoughts and prayers.
For Denise's father, for Denise herself, for her mother, for everyone in the family who is struggling with these serious health issues on behalf of her father, and for you too, Lou. Other joys and concerns?
A concern for the families, parents, children in Virginia, where a 6-year-old brings a gun to school to settle an argument. I don't know what to say about that. Teacher.
For the families in Virginia, for the teacher who was
is
shot.
critically wounded. But if everybody having a gun is spread so far that now 6-year-olds carry guns, what are we? I can't say anything.
It's of deep concern. I'm having a little trouble with my candle lighting. If you'll use your imaginations, this candle is lit. Other joys and concerns. Then this one is for Seth and Bob and my joy in having them with us this morning. And finally, this candle, is for joys and concerns which may remain on your hearts, but were not shared this morning. Now, Roberta and I are going to do some special music. Can everybody hear me? Okay. All right. I want to say a word about this music. Seth and I have 2 more brothers who are not here. One of them is our brother Mark, who lives in Maine. He is, I think, a very talented writer and composer. And he wrote the words and music for this piece that we're going to do about 10 years ago. He wrote it, his church was doing a Christmas pageant. And it's called Really See a Star, and it's a song for Epiphany. Roberta's going to play the music, and since I'm not much of a singer, I'll be reading the words as she does so. Were there really once some magi? Were there really 3 and frankincense and myrrh. Is it true? Is this tale a little much for me? Will I really see a star? When I see it, will I go? When it calls me, will I know? Will I even know? Jesus, shine your light anew. Let me follow you. Shine, O star, and I will give my treasures and my life. Jesus, shine your light anew. Let me follow you. Shine, O star, and I will give my treasures and my life. Thank you, Brother Mark, even though you're not here. He's with us in spirit. He knows we were going to do this today. Now, in keeping with the music, the Star of Bethlehem, our message this morning I'm calling Epiphany, which is the theme, along with the theme of light. But let's talk about epiphanies, plural. Epiphany with a big E, and also those with a little e. Today is January 8th. Just 2 days ago, January 6th, was 12th night. Epiphany on the Christian calendar. And that's Epiphany with the big E. So let's start there before we move on to other epiphanies. No doubt this will be a familiar story. 12th night, the Epiphany, is also called Three Kings Day. It's the day Christians celebrate the arrival of the Magi to visit the newborn Jesus. I'm going to read from the Testament, Matthew 2nd chapter, English Standard Version, the story of how the Magi came to Bethlehem. For those of you who know the scripture word by word, please understand I have edited a bit just to make it shorter. I didn't change any words. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." Herod the king assembled all the chief priests and scribes of the people and inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them when the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That is Epiphany with the big E. But let's back up a moment and ask, what is an epiphany after all? What's the definition? As with many words, there are multiple definitions. The first definition is the manifestation of Christ to the Gentiles as represented by the Magi, and the feast day associated with that. Another definition, any manifestation of a divine or supernatural being. Then to the more secular definitions, a usually sudden manifestation or perception of the essential nature or meaning of something, or an intuitive grasp of reality through something usually simple and striking. Any illuminating discovery, realization, or disclosure. Epiphany may be a word that's, I thought as I looked it up in various quotations, a bit overused, but I think epiphanies occur. The visit of the Magi is an epiphany because the Magi viewed Jesus' birth as an important revelation, a very important revelation. They accepted that Jesus was divine. The scripture says they worshiped him. And although I went to Methodist Sunday school all through my youth, I somehow missed the main point, which is that the Magi's visit meant that Jesus' divinity was revealed to all people and not just to Jews. And before we leave the Magi, I just have to throw in a couple of interesting facts. At least I thought they were interesting. Nowhere in the scripture does it say there were 3 wise men. It says the Magi came from the east. That's plural, because Magus would be one. And in fact, some branches of Eastern Christianity believe there are up to 12 wise men. There's also nothing in the scriptures that leads us to believe that they are kings. So with the whole Balthazar and Melchior and Caspar, each of them is a king from somewhere, including Ethiopia. One of them is king from Ethiopia. Well, if you get out your map, Ethiopia is not east of Bethlehem, it's south. But the story was added to over Christian history by changing the number to 3, or at least picking the number 3, and also by naming the 3 Magi. So I guess we say goodbye to we 3 kings of Orient are. But the number 3 is tied to the 3 gifts, which are mentioned in the scripture: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So as to epiphanies, I'd like to leave the Magi behind and talk about epiphanies with a little e, to concentrate on those other definitions that have to do with an intuitive grasp of reality, usually simple and striking, an illuminating discovery, realization, or disclosure. These may be palm to the head type of realizations. Why didn't I think of that before? But actually, to leave humor aside, I think that's a little trivial. We want an epiphany, I think by its very nature, should be significant. It's not trivial. It opens up a new way of understanding the world. An epiphany opens up a new way of understanding the world. It might even be life-changing. It sheds light. Is an epiphany always positive? It certainly can be. Major thinkers, scientists, and artists sometimes shatter old ways of thinking and set the stage for all of us to look at things differently. Albert Einstein said, listen to this, "I never made one of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking. I never made one of my discoveries through the process of rational thinking. Einstein is famous for having had thought experiments. Perhaps those were epiphanies under a different name. He went on to prove them mathematically, or at least to be able to explain them mathematically, but they just came to him. And artists, think about artists. Do they have a special kind of openness that allows them to receive inspiration? This could be artists of all kinds. Certainly artists that we think of, painters, sculptors, etc., but composers, writers, people who have an openness to looking at things and finding a way to share with the rest of us stuff we may not have thought of before. Can inspiration be equivalent to an epiphany? I think so, especially when it leads to breaking new ground. Again, it can provide all the rest of us with a new way of seeing. So let's look at ourselves. How might an epiphany affect us? Perhaps it already has. Perhaps it has led us to wake up to what is really important in our lives. How about relationships? Waking up perhaps to the fact that anger or pride has damaged an important relationship. An epiphany here might well shout, get over it. Drop that. Take care of that relationship. For some people, finding religion is an epiphany. For others, leaving religion is an epiphany. If I may, I'm going to share my own story on this subject. Some of you have heard it before, I'm sure. But I was very active in the EUB, later Methodist Church. Went to Sunday school and church, enjoyed it. Sang in the youth choir. I wasn't invited to the senior choir. But, so I was active. I was president of the youth fellowship, Sundays were church days. And I found the teachings of Jesus so important to me. They are important to me today. I like to think the things that I learned in Sunday school and the teachings of Jesus guide my view of the world and guide my view of how to live in the world with other people. But this particular Sunday, maybe not even a Sunday, I was decorating the Christmas tree. So we're back to the birth of Jesus. I was a young adult. Our daughter had been born. I'm decorating the Christmas tree and I'm thinking, can I really be a Christian? And what I was thinking about is, what about all the Buddhists and Muslim and Taoists and people with religions I don't even know about, who allegedly, according to the Christian church I'd gone to, would never be saved because they hadn't found Jesus. And the more I thought about it, I thought, I'm not sure I'm really a Christian. I think I'm a follower of Jesus, but I'm not sure I'm a Christian. And it was, in fact, ironic. I was decorating the Christmas tree, but it struck me so strongly that I would have to call it an epiphany. Eventually, it led me here. It led me here, where we can continue to search. And search with each other, and search and maybe find different ways. But that epiphany eventually led to Dick and me walking through the doors here. So another kind of epiphany, well, let's think about people who start over in their careers or vocations. We sometimes learn about individuals with major careers. They're successful. And then they decide they just don't love what they're doing. They start over and ahead in a whole new direction. For example, they could veer from medicine to art. I'm struck by how often I read about someone who is breaking ground in a given field, and the more I read about them, then I learn this is their second career. They left something else to follow what they loved. I'll bet those folks have had an epiphany, perhaps even a series of them. So an epiphany can also shout, here's a new path. Now, what if I fail to recognize what could be an epiphany? In the noise and hustle bustle of our everyday lives, I think sometimes things are trying to get in that we just don't let come in all the way. Could I be too mired in current habits to realize I could change and there's something worth changing for? And it's been right in front of me all along? Or how about this? Could I create an epiphany for another person? Ah, wouldn't that be nice? I wish that he or she would just realize, fill in the blanks. But of course, it doesn't work that way. Epiphanies don't work that way. There's a reason that light is associated with an epiphany. A bright idea. The light bulb just went on. The Star of Bethlehem. A candle in the dark. Bring a torch, Jeanette Isabella. Hey, for all we know, maybe she was one of the Magi. With Epiphany, there is a new light where things were murky. And it seems to just happen. So it's the new year. By long-standing custom, it's the time of year to reevaluate our lives. Can we call up an epiphany, even if we need one? Can we accelerate it? We certainly can't force it, or that would not even be an epiphany. No, we cannot do any of those things. What we can do is to be open, to listen to our inner voice, to find joy in nature, to allow the world to talk to us. No, we still cannot call up an epiphany, but we might. And in any case, we'll be ready for one if one comes, and chances are life will be more fulfilling. I'm done, and it's your turn.
Christel, in philosophy, there's an area of philosophy called epistemology, and in that area of philosophy, you take a look at how do we get knowledge, and if we think we've got some knowledge, how do we know what we got's out? And that's what you do in epistemology. And I always have a little bit of, I'm a little bit suspect about epiphanies. I've had them, and I think, as Einstein indicated, imagination is a real starter towards the truth. But as we know from Einstein's ideas that he had, we waited around until the scientists proved what he thought his epiphanies. And I'm sure if Einstein were here today, he would talk about how important that is. So I'm just a little bit, I value epiphanies, not only my own, but yours and everybody else's. And it's certainly a step towards the truth. But I value the scientific method more. In terms of a method to gain knowledge, I don't think you can convince him.
Oh. Thank you, Ty.
You're welcome.
Others? Lou?
I had a astronomy professor many years ago say that during the birth of Jesus, there was a supernova. I don't know how scientifically true that is, but this is what this professor said, which might be, if you know what a supernova would do, you would see it as a very, very, very bright star, and then after a certain amount of days or months, it would go away. Might have been what the Magi saw, perhaps. Kind of just a fun thought. Maybe he was lying.
I've read that too. That doesn't mean that it was from a reliable source, but I have read
The guy's
that.
name was Presto. He was an astronomer, so he told the story. I wrote it down and kept it in my memory.
Others?
Would you want to talk about the most difficult or the hardest thing about growing up in the Methodist Church and then transitioning to Unitarian Universalist? Things you have to give up or things you bring back?
I don't know if everyone heard Tim's question. He asked what was the hardest thing about leaving the Methodist Church and giving that up. When I had my epiphany, if that's what it was, we had not been going to church very frequently. We had moved from Ohio to Florida, and the minister had noticed that we were coming. It was a fairly active Methodist congregation in Jacksonville, Florida. The minister noticed that we were coming from time to time and asked to visit. Right thing to do. And I got thinking about that and got thinking about what would I say. So I think there was some pre-cogitating that went on before I was decorating that Christmas tree, where I thought, I need to face what I really am thinking and whether I really am a Methodist. And in the end, it was simple to leave. I mean, for one thing, we weren't active. But it was simple to just stand back and think about it longer and deeper. And then when we moved here, I had a friend in Jacksonville who was a UU, and he and I went to lunch together, and I said, what do you believe? And he said, well, sometimes we sit around and talk about, do you think there's a God? And I'm thinking, in church, they do this? You know, I was really quite astounded from my perspective. But I remember that conversation when we moved here, and I drove by the church and saw this was a UU church. I thought, maybe this is a good place to invite ourselves in. And particularly when we read the principles that are printed in the front of our hymnal, that give full respect to Christianity and Judaism and other teachings. So my belief in the teachings of Jesus is really quite strong. And I hope I have not walked away from those. But I was glad to embrace these other faith traditions, and this seemed like a place that I could do it and keep asking those questions, which of course I'm still asking today. I don't know that there is an answer, but it's a good place to ask those questions. And it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard for me.
Good.
Who I got? Lisa? No, not Lisa. Were you pointing to somebody, Mike?
Well, I thought perhaps Seth had his hand up, so I thought I would.
Oh, did I overlook you, Seth?
Just cue you.
No, you changed your mind?
I
Maybe I'll hear over lunch.
I will share, I think in terms of teaching, there's a very powerful way to extend conceptual understanding of students through what's called constructivism. And it embraces lots of teaching strategies and whatever. But the heart of it is basically presenting a discrepant event that's somewhat different from what your current students' conceptual understanding, if you will, collectively for the class already is. Leading to more thought, more discussion, and more, most importantly, application of what's already known to something that's new and different. Okay? And if you think about that in a scientific context, maybe those epiphanies, and maybe this is a matter of semantics, but that thinking outside the box leads to something different than what I already know as a professional, as a scientist working on an area. The scientific process and the whole scientific foundation is that if I believe that and pursue that, particularly if I publish that and share that with other scientists, it will either be proven or disproven and possibly advance our understanding of whatever it is that the epiphany surrounds it. And so I think it's in a sense, and I don't disagree with Ty, but
In fact, it seems to me those messages are
in a sense,
consistent.
it really is advancing knowledge that perhaps more in the area of scientific understanding. But then if you think about art, and you think about whether it would be Van Gogh, were those epiphanies or were those malfunctioning, if you will, biochemical neurotransmitters in his brain, that's a subject for discussion. But in that sense, you are also advancing artistically, I would think, and creativity for not just your own self, but for many others as well.
Bob, I don't want to put you on the spot, but Bob, my brother-in-law Bob, is a talented sculptor. And he does things I just can't even imagine where the thought process was that got him there. I mean, and regularly astounded by what he does, and really varied kinds of sculpture. So I was, in fact, thinking of Bob when I wrote about the epiphany and the inspiration behind art, because I've had a chance to witness it up front. Anybody else? All right, then why don't we move to the next part of our service? Thank you all so much. We will now take the morning's offering. We're doing that these days by inviting people to come up front and drop something in the plate there. But Tim always likes to say, and I think this is lovely, if you have something to give, please do. If you need something, please feel free to take from it. Please join me now in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. When it comes to this. I will extinguish our chalice with these words. Blessed is the path on which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that has heard the call. Blessed is your mind that discerns the way. Blessed is the gift that you will receive by giving. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on the journey. May you go forth in peace. That concludes our service. You decided not to do the Gregorian thing?
What's that?
You decided not to do the Gregorian thing?
Well, I'll do it next week.
Yeah,
I have another announcement to make before we quit. Next week, we're having movie night at the cottage. Anybody is welcome to attend. That'll be about an hour after church. It'll be Lincoln specific, so we'll be talking about Lincoln next week. And also, anyone who feels moved to make a presentation at church, we will help you in any way possible, because there's no other way we're going to get this many people unless we get friends and relatives and neighbors and children. So anybody that would like to make a presentation, the pulpit is open for you, and we will support you with pictures or quotes or anything else. So that's you know me, I forget everything. There's coffee cake and coffee back there.